Expand on the idea of leading with boundaries. How do you lead a team or your staff?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Oh, that's the challenging thing, right? Because when we're leading, we're responsible and they are our responsibility. And so how do you manage somebody who maybe is being irresponsible or not wanting to carry it or holding you responsible for their feelings, attitudes, and choices? So really, the only thing we cannot control anybody else. Like, let's just be clear. I can tell my kids have a good attitude, but I can't control their attitude. I can tell them you're going to do this. But ultimately, I'm not able to override their free will. God doesn't even do that. In the book of Revelations, he says, I stand at the door and I knock. And if you open the door, I will come in. He is proving to us that even as the most perfect leader, the leader that we all want to be, he still stands at the door and knocks and allows the people in his life to be and stay powerful. And so what I would say is you can't change people's boundaries, but you can operate in really healthy boundaries. So for me, I tend to edit, but I explain like, oh, you know what? I made that choice and I shouldn't have made that choice. And I own it. I own my choice. Or, I kind of feel this, but I don't know how you feel about it. I'm editing and I'm giving them a chance to own their own feelings. Or, I think this, or we should do this, but what do you think? Rather than saying, I think we all should. I think we all feel. That actually takes away that powerful atmosphere. And then for me, when somebody puts up a boundary that I don't like, which happens, right? I need you to be here late. I need you to do this. And they go, oh, I've got something I can't. And I want to say, well, I'm your boss. You got to show up. And I realize they're operating in healthy boundaries. I didn't give them a proper warning. I am asking them to do something that maybe wasn't clear. Then I have to respect that boundary. If I violate that boundary and say, well, it doesn't matter what you're going to do. You're going to do what I want you to do. I can get them to do it for a minute, but they're going to resist me internally and they're going to eventually walk away from me, knowing that I don't actually respect their autonomy, that they are different than I am. So it's really clear, even with our kids, our kids can act like we're responsible for all of it. And I remember one time my son came in from school and I said, how was your day? And he's like, oh, it was good. And I said, anything happen? And he's like, Mom, stop talking. You're always talking. I'll tell you if there's anything. And just being kind of rude. And I felt myself wanted to be that Italian mom that's like, you will tell me how it was and you're going to tell me what you loved. But I said, okay, no problem. I'm here when you need it. And about an hour later, he had something that he needed from me. And he comes in and he says, Mom, I need this thing. It's up in the garage. Can you get it? And I said, you were always asking me to do things. How come you always have questions? And I mimicked what he did. And him and I locked eyes and we both started laughing because he got to see that he was holding me responsible for something that I was not responsible for, and he was getting to see it. So with our kids, if they say, I want water, and they're screaming and you get them water, you're teaching them that you will get them water if they scream. But if you say to them, I would be happy to get you water when you ask nicely, that's setting a boundary. I'm not screaming, don't you yell, I'll get you water when you want water. I'm not adding, I'm fully in control and powerful. And I say, when you would like water, I would love to get it for you when you ask nicely. That's setting a boundary without me amping it up or, exacerbating them. So even with my husband, if we get into a conversation that is escalating, we will say something like, hey, this conversation is turning disrespectful. That doesn't mean you're disrespecting me. You don't like me. Why are you talking to me like that? It's, hey, this over here, this conversation is turning disrespectful. I'd be happy to continue it when it's respectful. I'll be in the other room. And they might say, well, you come back, you're running away. Why won't you talk about this? But again, you're setting a boundary. Now, if you set a boundary, but you don't follow through, then they're just words. So if I say, I'll be happy to get you water when you talk nicely, but I still give them water, doesn't matter. But if I actually withhold from them until I can't make people operate in boundaries, but I can set standards that require them to operate within my boundaries. So I can't say, you need to do this and you need to do this to be with me. I can say, hey, this is what it requires. This is my standard. And then if you do it, you get to be around me. That doesn't have to be a verbal thing. That's just what it looks like. Like I just operate in that. So again, I can't say, oh, I don't receive text messages and I don't answer late night calls, but then I text back and I answer, or I do the same thing to them. I'm not having the same respect. So I see a lot of leaders do that, where we want people to respect us and respect our boundaries, but turn around and disrespect them. And so it requires you to pull back and go, okay, if we're going to live powerful, everybody gets to be powerful, not just the person who pays the bills. And that's really key. So this conversation is turning disrespectful. I'd love to continue it when it is respectful. That's fantastic. That's not escalating it. That's not saying you need to do something different. It calms down. And I always say, there's no rush. If you need to set a boundary, don't grab your phone and text immediately. Take a minute. Take 24 hours. There's no rush. You're an adult. Well, what if they get mad? Well, again, you're not powerful enough to make them mad. They chose anger. They could choose empathy. They could choose kindness. They could choose grace. They chose anger. So it's very clear. But really, the best way to operate in boundaries as a leader is to do it yourself.